Sometimes things don't go to plan, and the artwork that ends up on the paper is very different from the idea I had in my head to start with, and this certainly happened in this case. G'day everyone, and thank you for joining me. This piece was originally inspired by a photo that I came across on wildlifereferencephotos.com. Now, I often browse over on that site when I'm looking for a little bit of inspiration, and I came across this wonderful close-up shot of an elephant's face. Now, all of the photos on this particular site are really high quality, so I could see every single wrinkle and detail on his face. And I could have created a very highly detailed colour pencil piece from this particular photo. But my Inktense blocks have been calling me lately. They've just been sitting on my desk waiting to be used, and I thought this could be a really fun opportunity to complete a piece with them. Now, this means that I would be sacrificing some of those details and simplifying things a little bit to suit the medium, but I could see some really interesting shades of blues and oranges through this particular photo, and I thought it would be really interesting to have a play with emphasising those and seeing what I could come up with. So I quickly knocked up a few guidelines onto a piece of Arches hot press watercolour paper, and I taped it down to an MDF board. I started off by using my Payne's Grey and Charcoal Inktense blocks to build up the base layers of colours. I had those few guidelines that really gave a lot of shape to the face, so I worked at keeping those relatively dark so I didn't lose my place as I worked. I was really relaxed while I worked on these base layers. I just tried to sit back and enjoy the process of adding layers and letting them dry. I knew that I really couldn't mess anything up at this point, so I just slathered the colours around until I got something that I thought would be a really good base for the details to come. By the end of the day, I was really happy with what I had down, so I set the piece aside to dry so I could come back and work on it the next day. I started off by using my white Inktense block just to map out some of the lighting effects on this particular piece. I wanted to get those into place before I moved any further, knowing that I'd be able to glaze some colour over this. This white Inktense pencil dried to a beautiful opaque white, meaning that I had some really nice lights and darks for me to work with as I move forward with the details. I zoomed my camera in nice and close, I put some Netflix on in the background, and I prepared myself to get down into the nitty-gritty of the details. And I started, and I stopped. As soon as I started getting in close, I don't know, I wasn't having as much fun. I was really enjoying being fast and loose the day before. And the idea of painting in all of those little details to come just left me feeling really... I started painting and I found that I was immediately using a wet brush to just erase everything that I had just put down. I wasn't having fun, and every part of me just wanted to walk away and abandon this piece at this point. So what was I going to do? I sort of sat back for a moment and I thought I might have a little play with my colour pencils on the top. I was all ready to throw this thing in the bin, so what could it hurt at this point? I pulled out a handful of my luminance pencils. Now, I had already experimented with using my polychromos on top of the Inktense, but I found that they weren't really opaque enough to have a nice effect. I chose a lovely light cobalt blue, inspired by some of the lighter shades that I already had down, and I just started colouring. Now, at this point, I thought that I might get away with just using them to add some highlights and shadows, still leaving this a majority Inktense piece. But I found that I really liked how the pencil sat on top of the Inktense. I was able to get some really bold colours and some interesting textures very quickly. So I picked up a darker blue and a violet grey, and I just started adding pencil. I found that I was starting to have fun. I very quickly abandoned any thoughts of realism, and I just found myself relaxing into putting colours and shapes wherever I wanted. I already had some very strong foundations from the lights and darks that I had down, so I already had an identifiable elephant on my piece of paper. All I had to do now was bring it to life. I generally used warmer colours to the left and cooler to the right. I found myself looking through the viewfinder of my camera really often, just to step back as it were and look for areas that should be darker or lighter in value. Not as they would be realistically, but how they were going to fit into a pleasing composition overall. I can't say I've ever created a piece like this before, concentrating on colours and shapes instead of trying to create a figurative piece. Working like this was completely foreign to me and is probably about as close to any level of abstraction as I'll ever get. So here's the final piece. This isn't the piece I thought it was going to be, but I really love the end result. Now, while I'm not suddenly going to change styles and abandon more realistic pieces, this was really fun and freeing to create something different, and I am so glad my original idea did not go to plan. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please leave me a like or a comment to tell me what you think, and if you'd like to see some more of my work, why not hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys.